Okay, good morning, students. I see we only have 3 students joining us for today's live session. Okay, we have another student arriving now. Welcome to Dennis, Didi, Machadiso, and Chekofatso. Thank you for attending the live session this morning. I'm going to start off by asking you all if you have anything specific that you want me to have a look at from week 2 or 3's content. We're obviously in week 3. Is there anything specific? Can you please type in the chat, or you can use your audio? Is there anything specific that you want me to go over before we start? Topic-wise? Okay, there doesn't seem to be anything. Please use the chat or use your mic. If there's nothing specific, then I'm just going to look at the pages that you were required to cover, and obviously just highlight some of the important concepts and topics that you should be looking at. Is there nothing specific that you need assistance with? An activity that you might have completed? Theory that you might have gone over? Okay, there doesn't seem to be anything specific. There's a message in the chat. Thank you for responding. Okay, so if there's nothing specific, I'm just going to move the chat across and let's have a look at general. Okay, so you know that there's a roadmap, and you've obviously had to cover Chapter 2's content for Week 2 and 3. Chapter 2 is the start of the actual accounting concepts relating to the objective and the purpose of accounting, which is the record keeping. So please remember the context. Last week, when we spoke about the importance of accounting, we looked a little bit at the brief history, and then we spoke about the double entry rule. Okay, so you had to cover up until page 19 in the last week's content. This week's content, obviously week 3, you're going to be looking at the remainder of the chapter. So just to highlight some of the topics that you would have looked at already from last week, the more important aspects of accounting. The first thing is obviously the double entry. Every debit has a credit. So in other words, your debits will equal your credits when looking at the double entry rule. And why do we have a double entry? It's because every transaction has 2 sides. Right, so you have 2 parties in a transaction. Who are the 2 parties in a transaction? Does anyone know? Who could the 2 parties be in a transaction? You can use your chat, you can use the mouse. 2 parties in a transaction, who could they be? Dennis, Didi, Machadiso, and Chekofatso. Debits and credits is the rule for double entry. If you've got a transaction, so in other words, you enter into a transaction, okay, there's an exchange of goods and services for money. Who are the 2 parties involved, generally speaking, in any transaction? Does no one know? So when you go to the store and you buy something, who are the 2 parties involved? Yes, there we go. Someone's got it. Nice, Dennis. Buyer and seller. Correct. Okay, so from the buyer's perspective, they're obviously going to have a debit or a credit depending on what's happening. And the same thing from the seller's perspective. There'll be a debit or a credit depending on what's happening. So just remember that 2 parties are involved in a transaction. Right, in most transactions, it'll be a buyer and seller. Okay, but you can have other parties involved as well. Okay, maybe you take out a loan, then you'll have the bank and the business taking out the loan. Right, you could have other scenarios where you might have the owner's giving money or capital to the business, and you've got two parties involved there. So every transaction has two parties, two sides to the transaction, a debit and a credit. Okay, last week we also spoke a little bit about users and uses of financial information. I just want to highlight the Cole Campus platform again. This is the discussion forum that is available for students to engage. I still didn't see any responses regarding the uses and users of the accounting from last week. So I don't know, are you able to address that specific topic or point? Can someone give me a user of accounting? Who uses accounting? A user, someone, anyone? Who would be a user of accounting information? Okay, we've got something. Stakeholders, an investor. Yes, very good. That's a nice example. Well done. Okay, so a user would be someone that would actually take that information and they would use that information. And that's the objective of accounting. It's to provide us with useful information, and different users will use that information. So if we're looking at an investor, what would an investor use the information for? Mashadiso? You've got a user. Now let's talk about the use. How would they use the information? Okay, so this is the knowing, doing, being basically. What would they do? Okay, I see the mic is on. Do you want to speak to us? You can use the mic if it's easier to communicate, or the chat, it's up to you. Okay, Mashaji, so I see the mic's on, but we're not getting any audio coming through the class. There might be a problem with the mic. Maybe use the chat instead then. The use, what would they use it for? Anyone? Think about it. What would an investor use the information for? Yes, the mic isn't working. Thank you for trying. I'm not too sure what the problem is. There is a test your audio option on Zoom. If you go to settings, you can test your audio. Just give us a point in the chat then. The use. Very good. Yes. Okay, so they would have to establish how profitable the company is. Are they in a good or bad position? And they would have to analyze. They would have to investigate. Okay, so those are things that they would have to do. In other words, the use would be the action that they would have to take. In other words, they would have to analyze, they'd have to do calculations, workings, analysis, whatever it might entail to make a decision on whether they should invest or not. Okay, so buy, hold, or sell is perfect. You can use that as well to describe the use that an investor would actually have to consider in terms of information. All right, so please try answer these questions as well as on Call Campus. It's meant to assist you with your application. Okay, and I can give you feedback. So if all of you had written something here on Call Campus, I would reply to each and every one of those answers to basically give you feedback regarding how you've tackled the question. Okay, so remember, because we've got Call Campus as a platform where all the material is uploaded onto the actual platform, it is a good idea to try use some of the discussion forums to practice and to make sure you're covering the most important topics in that specific section. Okay, so I'll do the same this week. There'll be another post, and we'll be looking at the rest of chapter 2, which is our focus for week 3's content. Okay, so nice example. Let's go back to the textbook. You've got lots of different users here. Okay, general public, management, etc. Government, there's a lot. Okay, there's a few that you can have a look at. Right, uses refers to the actual action. What action would I take in order to gain a specific, let's say, advantage when making a decision? Okay, making decisions require information, and we need information to do so. Okay, this is week 3's content, where we've started with a discussion looking at the internal versus external reporting. Okay, I don't want to repeat too much of the video because the video is already available on Call Campus, and I've already gone through all of the details here in the actual textbook. So please, if you haven't logged into Call Campus yet to access and watch week 3's content, please do so at least you're on track. If you just stay up to date, okay, week on week, you'll be fine for your assessment. Okay, make sure you're covering those activities. Because this is our live session, I want to cover activities because they're more practical and we can address the topics and the questions that come up in the actual textbook. Before we start, just to recap, one of the most important things when looking at accounting is the differences between financial accounting and management accounting. The textbook talks about the different fields of accounting. So let's bring the chat across. Let's start with financial accounting. Does anyone know what financial accounting is? What is its main purpose? What is it required to do? Okay, if you don't know what financial accounting is, maybe try management accounting. Either or. What's your view? Can someone help us? Does no one know? Financial versus management. Okay, we've got some notes in the chat now. Great. Balance company's finances. Okay, that's good. This would be something practical, and that was described in the actual trial balance. Okay, so we'll get there and we'll highlight that point. Okay, so Tekofatso's point speaks to the purpose of a trial balance is it's to balance, okay, the company's finances. So that's good. Okay, that would be debits and credits. All right, Didi went with Summarized, management account, detailed. Perfect. That's exactly what we were looking for. Really, really good answer there. Okay, so please remember that when you're looking at financial accounting, they talk about internal and external reporting. So when I look at financial accounting, this is the external reporting. And if I'm looking at an external user, so for example, an investor, okay, would investors want to know all the detail? No, they don't. Okay, an investor would want a summary, nice and concise, short and simple, highlighting all the main points of the business. And then, if you're looking at management accounting, there you're focusing on the internal and you're looking at the detailed reporting of the actual business. And in terms of a user, that could be the manager. Maybe you're the social media manager, okay? And you're part of advertising, all right? Or marketing. Okay, part of your subjects that you do at Boston Media House is part of your BBA. Okay, marketing is obviously a very important focus for students covering a BBA. When looking at internal, okay, would you want to know where you have marketed? In other words, would you want to know how much you've put into social media? Would you want to know whether you have billboards or magazine or print ads? Would you want to know if you have any television or radio commercials? Okay, those are things that you would want to know. Do you agree? Because they're detailed. Would an investor want to know that? No, they don't. Okay, an investor doesn't care what sort of marketing you're doing. An investor would want to know, in terms of a summary, how much did you spend on marketing? That's all they're going to want to know. So they would want to know marketing. Okay, what's the total expense? That's all they're going to want to know. Right, an investor's not going to want to know, did you place ads on Facebook? Did you place ads on YouTube? Did you place ads on TV? Did you place ads in print? They're not going to want to know all the detail. Okay, but it makes a very, very, very big difference in terms of management, because managers need to know that. Managers need to know how successful was a ad campaign. Right, was the print ad actually successful? Did people actually see the advert? How many magazines or newspapers had the ad in it? Or social media, how many likes did a post get? Etc., etc. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make here is financial is summarized and it's very high level. Management accounting is very detailed and it's lower level in terms of being internal and basically diving into the deeper side of things in terms of uncovering, okay, more analysis, more information, okay, more recording, or let's say more aspects of the actual decision that you've made. Okay, so every company has to do some sort of marketing, but depending on what we're looking at in terms of financial accounting or management accounting, how detailed do we want that information to be? Is it going to be set in a financial statement, or is it going to be something that's custom, that's going to be within the organization? Okay, and when you're obviously working in practice, you will also be required to give your input on certain reports. Okay, and those are normally managers' reports, okay, management reports, okay, internal managerial reports that businesses would require for businesses to run effectively. Okay, so the point that I'm trying to make is keep it simple. Remember, internal, external, internal, external. Okay, that's the first step. Second step, detailed or summarized. Okay, you have a really, really, really great summary here in the textbook where they showcase the differences between the two groups. Okay, the one is internal, the one is external. Okay, obviously financial is external. Do we need to follow rules? Yes. IFRS. Does anyone remember what IFRS stands for? IFRS? Anyone know what that stands for? It's an acronym for? This we looked at when we spoke about the brief history of accounting. Yes, Dennis is on the ball. Okay, International Financial Reporting Standards. Good, well done. Nice, Dennis. Okay, so when you're looking at IFRS, does IFRS apply to all types of accounting? No, it only applies to financial accounting because it needs to be objective, it needs to be precise, and it's used by external parties outside the organization. Okay, so the JSE has its own requirements that companies would have to adhere to, and public companies would have to meet all the requirements of IFRS as well as the JSE in order to sell their shares on that particular platform. Okay, when looking at managerial accounting, the same rules don't necessarily apply. Okay, yes, companies can still follow very, very, very specific rules, which they normally do, but it's a lot more custom. Okay, so they don't need to follow a strict accounting framework if it's internal, because the only people that's going to see that information would be inside the company. Right, so if you're an employee, if you're managing the marketing department, you will know how much the company is spending on all the different marketing channels that's available for use. Okay, so you'll know how much money is going into print, how much money is going into television, how much is going to radio, how much is going to social media. Okay, you'll know that because you're internal. Okay, it's management accounting. And that doesn't follow specific rules. Right, your manager isn't going to outline what the strict rules are in terms of IFRS. They're just going to ask you, maybe give a table, okay? Or give columns, okay, or rows, or give a graph, okay, whatever the case might be. Right, but it's internal, it's customizable, it's generally subjective, okay, versus financial accounting, which is objective. Okay, so data must be objective here, meaning factual. Here it can be objective because it's internal. Right, so different managers will have different requirements, and you'd have to meet those requirements. All right, so let's have a look at the activity that you would have to have completed to test your knowledge on the differences between managerial accounting, okay, as well as financial accounting. All right, very, very, very easy activity, but very important one. Okay, so just to make this as interactive as possible, let's keep the chat across here next to it, and I'm going to ask you each one to try. Okay, then in the chat, just type financial or management. Okay, you don't have to write down the whole word, but we're obviously looking at that. Okay, is it financial accounting or is it management accounting? The first one. Hopefully you've done these already, but if you haven't, here's some practice for you. Okay, this is a very important activity because it tests your ability to differentiate between those two forms of accounting that we just spoke about. Okay, all right, let's start with Dennis. Dennis, the first one. What is it? Managerial accounting, management accounting, or financial? What is Dennis going to go with? Dennis went with financial. Perfect. Well done, Dennis. It's financial. Why? External users. That's the giveaway. Okay, next one. Let's go with Didi. Didi generates general purpose financial statements. Which one? Financial, management, general purpose. There's a clue there basically. Didi, which one do you think that describes? Is it financial? Yes. Okay. FA, financial accounting, that's fine. Okay, we'll use that abbreviation if you want to save time with the typing. That's all right. Okay, but please just don't do that when you're answering questions in an assessment. It's fine for now because we're practicing. I understand what you're saying. Financial accounting, definitely. Okay, next one. Let's go. Machadiso makes more use of subjective data. We actually spoke about subjective data earlier. Do you know where that goes? Financial management? Yes, okay. Subjective, good. It can be customizable. Right, the word subjective means it's not factual, there is room for customization. There is some level of interpretation, okay, and creativity as well, perhaps. Okay, something to add to that description. Okay, future orientated reports. Okay, so which one will be looking towards the future? Will it be financial or management? Tekofatso? Financial management? You went with management? Very good. Yes. Future orientated. Just remember, financial accounting is looking at what has happened. In the first video, okay, well, the first two videos of chapter 1, the one was obviously covering outline and overview in terms of scope. And then one of the videos I actually showed you financial reports. Okay, those financial reports are actually on your Cole Campus platform. Okay, it's a very important resource. If you go and you actually look at your modules, right, you'll see Janet has uploaded those two reports. Those are the two that I had looked at when we looked at week 1's content. Okay, I showed you two examples of very successful South African companies in the media industry, actually. Okay, Naspers and Process you would consider more media specific. Okay, they're obviously online businesses a lot of the time. Okay, but the point here is you're looking at management accounting or financial, you're looking at financial. Okay, because those reports look at last year. Notice the heading here, 2020. Notice 2020. Okay, this is not 2021 or even 2022. Okay, those reports for 2021 and 2022 haven't been created yet because accountants, in terms of financial accounting, they look at the past, they don't look at the future. Right, so when we're looking at the future, the emphasis is obviously on management accounting because managers will have goals. Internal business, let's say stakeholders, they'll have a goal. Right, emphasis on objective data, that's the opposite. Subjective we spoke about, we said that was management. If it's objective, it's financial. Provides information mainly for internal users, we've spoken about that. All of you would probably go with management. Right, this one we can ask you. Let's check. Okay, we've lost a student. I'm going to ask Didi. Didi, there's only 3 students remaining in the class. Maybe someone had some connection problems. Didi, are you able to help us with this one? Must conform to standards that are externally set. Financial management. Financial, very good. Okay, don't forget IFRS. State specific purpose. Okay, earlier we spoke about general purpose. Here we've got specific purpose. Because it's specific, it needs to be management accounting. Okay, reports on financial events of the past. We just looked at it. We spoke about historical information. Okay, so financial accounting is historical. It's looking at the past, not the present or the future. And then the last one, not subject to external standards. Okay, earlier on, if you were paying attention, we spoke about how customizable, how subjective management accounting can be. Okay, all right, so very important that you understand the differences and you're able to identify them. Right, this is a really nice activity, and I see all of you are okay with this, so that's a really, really good sign. All right, so well done. Good efforts. Let's have a look at the next activity. Okay, activity 2D requires you to match these different concepts. All right, there are a few things that I just want to raise for all of you, just so you're comfortable with what we're actually focusing on here. If you're looking at this example activity where you're matching, okay, just remember when you're looking at historical information like Luca Pacioli, right, I'm not going to test that in an exam. Okay, you don't have to know how accounting was formed. Okay, that's not very, very relevant in today's world. Okay, so if you had to match it, it's obviously father of accounting. Okay, and then and this one, 45% is actually the tax rate. Okay, for individuals. Okay, the maximum tax rate. Right, how many of you watched the budget last week? Okay, the budget was presented on Wednesday. Did anyone watch the budget? Anyone? Yes or no in the chat, maybe? Ooh, no. Okay. Also, no. Interesting. Okay, did you hear something about the budget? Okay, maybe if you didn't watch the budget, did you hear anything about the budget? Wasn't aware of it. Okay. All right, so see, these are things that happen in the real world that obviously affect financial managers because things like tax will change, okay, or can change depending on the budget. Okay, so Didi did hear something. That's good. Okay, I am going to ask Janet to upload a summary of the budget. Okay, I did manage to source information. Obviously, this happened last week, Wednesday. Okay, so we didn't have any live sessions since then. But if you did do some sort of investigation or research, if you just Google budget 2021, you'll see there's lots of information about tax. This tax rate applies in terms of individuals. Okay, so the maximum tax rates. All right, so if you earn, okay, the more you earn, the more you pay. All right, if you earn a lot in terms of income, you're going to pay 45% of it to SARS. All right, that's the maximum tax rate. Okay, and then you've got a few others to match. Okay, you've got materiality and timeliness, you've got IFRS, you've got South African GAAP, sole proprietor, financial accounting, non-profit, private company, and companies. Okay, those are all easier to match. Okay, those the two that I'm highlighting here, you might have struggled with. Okay, this one you probably wouldn't have because it's in the textbook. This one you might have. Okay, that was something that was given as additional information. Okay, the current marginal or maximum marginal tax rate for individuals is 45% in South Africa. Okay, and that didn't change. Okay, that stayed the same. If you earn a large amount of income, okay, we're talking over, I think the level is 1.5 million. All right, so obviously we're talking big amounts of money. Okay, bigger. So in a year. Okay, this is obviously every year. So if you earn 1.5 million a year per annum, okay, 45% of that will be paid to SARS as a form of contribution. Okay. All right. So please try see if you can match more of those. Okay. We're not going to go through all of the match the column. Okay. This is a very easy activity. I'm just highlighting it unless you had problems with it. Okay. And that's why I asked everyone at the beginning of the lesson, did any of you have any problems with any of their activities? Okay, I don't see anything. Just have a look at the Cold Campus platform. I'm going to post that note about the budget speech that happened last week. I wanted to know if any of you had watched the budget because it is a very, very important announcement. Okay, when looking at accounting, this is important. You need to be able to describe what it is. You need to be able to differentiate what the differences are between accounting and bookkeeping. Okay, just before this page, there was a diagram highlighting the accounting cycle. Okay, I've covered that accounting cycle in the pre-recorded video when I was going through the textbook content. In this particular live session, I'm not going to go through that again, but I'm just going to differentiate, okay, the differences between bookkeeping and accounting because it's important. Right, so hopefully you had a look at activity 2F and you have an idea of what the differences are. Okay, Accounting is looking at the financial statements. Okay, so in other words, the useful information. Okay, that's where accountants get involved in, generally speaking. Okay, so an accountant is at a slightly higher level than a bookkeeper. Okay, maybe you've heard of someone that's a bookkeeper. Okay, maybe you know someone that's a bookkeeper. A bookkeeper, because you've got the word book, okay, they're looking after the invoices. They're looking after the journals. Okay, accountants can also do that. I mean, an accountant could do both effectively. Okay, an accountant could also do the bookkeeping as well as the accounting. All right, so just remember, bookkeeping is slightly lower level accounting in terms of the process. Okay, so they're capturing the invoices, they're storing and recording the invoices, they're keeping track of all the transactions. Okay, it's a process. They're not formulating the financial statements. Okay, so very important consideration. Make sure you know what the differences are between obviously accounting and bookkeeping. Okay. All right, and then you have one final activity, which I hope you've done. There's the note about trial balance. Earlier on, one of the students had raised a point regarding balancing debits and credit. That's exactly what the trial balance is required to do. Just something else to make as an announcement. Hopefully you've watched the video. There is a correction here that you have to make. Unfortunately, statement of financial position, this doesn't cover income and expenses. Okay, income and expenses are covered here. Okay, I see there's a typo here. It should have been assets and liabilities. All right, so if you didn't watch the video yet for this week, please just make that correction. Statement of financial position looks at assets and liabilities. And then the last thing that you had to do for this week was multiple choice questions. Okay, that's activity 2G. This I'm going to ask you to please complete if you haven't done so yet. It's a really great way to practice, and you'll be on track in terms of your multiple choice questions for the assessment. All right, I have less than a minute. This is going to time out soon. Thank you for attending live. If you do have any other questions regarding any of the activities that you might have looked at over the last week, or you're still going to look at because of week 3, please let me know either via WhatsApp, Call Campus, or email, and I'll post a note on the actual discussion forums if students have more questions about it. Okay, I see it's timed out. Thank you, everyone. Please watch this video if you didn't attend live.